Meditation on Psalm 68. Let God arise, let his enemies be scattered. Let them also that hate him flee before him. He that deceives the nations, those that follow after, those that scatter and do not gather, those who have believed the lie, they themselves will be scattered at the coming of the Lord, at the coming of his light, at the coming of truth. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melteth before the fire, so let the wicked perish at the presence of God. And here is where we see the mountains melt as wax, the exalted things, the towers fall. Men in his stature, the cedars, the tall trees, brought low. But let the righteous be glad, let them rejoice before God. Yea, let them exceedingly rejoice. My cup runneth over, bubbling spring of living waters. Fountains of living waters flow from the belly and were found on my lips. Sing unto God, sing praises to his name, extol him that rideth upon the heavens by his name, Yah, and rejoice before him, even the heavens of heavens, behind the veil of what is seen, sea of glass mingled with fire, and it quenches not. The world sees him not, but you will see him, and by his Spirit. Light on the water, an image reflected, are changed into likeness, into his likeness, as beholding in a glass glory to glory, for he inhabits the praises of those who see and hearken, and the faithful are transformed. And on this the singers stand, and the seers rejoice, this cloud of witnesses, the many waters. A father of the fatherless, and a judge of widows, is God in his holy habitation. When the earthly father forsakes the children, God our Father will care for them. When the earthly husband dies, the living bridegroom will lead her. The solitary, forsaking all for the pearl of great price, has forsaken also what is dead for what is alive. For God is in his holy habitation, and man has become his temple. God setteth the solitary in families, he bringeth out those which are bound with chains, but the rebellious dwell in a dry land. The solitary, houses without roofs to dwell in. Man with no earthly deliverer or head, he that knows his wound and seeks the physician. Chains of sin, that being in flesh, the law was unable to heal. But by the work of Christ, the veil of his perfect offering of his flesh being torn, the veil between God and man being torn, and that he was God, he made a way by his own right arm. He brought righteousness to us and poured down his Holy Spirit, that we may drink and not die in our sin, but live in him evermore. The bride has found the bridegroom, for he has revealed himself and brought her into his tent. One spirit, but the rebellious in a land without rain. They live in a dry land with no dew. They do not enjoy the blessing of his Holy Spirit, his comforter. They live in a house builded by man, desolate, severed, a severed branch, another capstone, that which blocks, and there is no rain for them, for they have set what is of man before what is of God. O God, when thou wentest forth before thy people, when thou didst march through the wilderness, Selah, just as in old, when the angel of the Lord went before them, now we have Jesus, Yahushua, the Christ, the breaker, has gone before them, and on the heads of them he has lighted upon their dwellings, upon their heads, a covert from the heat by day, and a light to guide by night. And they faint not, as the woman with eagle's wings, and Spirit and truth lift her up. They are nourished as by the valley of Achor, a door of hope, a taste of that heavenly gift, living waters, springs in the desert, and fruit-bearing trees. The earth shook, the heavens also dropped at the presence of God. Even Sinai itself was moved at the presence of God, the God of Israel. The earth, that perishable, shaken and disturbed at the eternal and imperishable one, for he is stronger than death. The heavens and powers and principalities bowing. Sinai, that of the bondwoman, and the law being moved aside for that better way, Christ having nailed that which was contrary to the cross of his death, that we may also conquer by his conquering already until life eternal. For that last Adam has become for us a quickening spirit, that God of Israel, of the covenant, and of the promise. Thou, O God, didst send a plentiful rain, whereby thou didst confirm thine inheritance when it was weary. The side of Christ pierced, pouring blood and water, and our covering in his blood, his sacrifice in death, and our quickening in his life, and the giving of his Spirit, for death could not hold him, nor had any dominion over him, who was life himself, establishing his bride in that former and latter rain in the first month, that word of truth. He is that way. Follow him. Delivered mightily by his Spirit, that we too may obtain the earnest of our expectation to inherit eternal dwellings in heavenly places, in the covenant of his love, that we perish not in this land of thorns, dry and parched land, as a woman with wings of an eagle was carried in the wilderness and nourished in that place, as on eagle's wings, those that wait upon the Lord, and we run that race set before us and faint not. For we were once in bondage to sin and our flesh, and received but a drink that could not carry us. But by Christ, that living water, we have drunk of the truth, covenant in faith by the work of his love, and have been conceived of the Spirit, that we thirst not again, and become children of that free woman, and of the Spirit, having now this treasure, this life, in earthen vessels, bound up with the cord of faith, until the redemption and manifestation of the sons of God, who hath also sealed us and given us the earnest of the Spirit in our hearts, that door of hope in a dry land. Thy congregation hath dwelt therein. Thou, O God, hast prepared of thy goodness for the poor. And what is that good thing? And if he ask, would his Father in heaven give him that Holy Spirit, that place of hope, that valley of Achor, the door of hope, the song in the night, nourishment in the wilderness, until it blossom and bud forth as the garden? For no man hath seen what God hath prepared for those who love him. But we behold as through a glass darkly, taste of that heavenly gift, and partakers of his Spirit, this confirmation of faith and expectation of the poor that wait upon the Lord, not as with haste reaching for the things of this world that profit not, but that they may receive a more excellent inheritance. For the poor of this world he has found to be rich in faith, and this is the patience of the saints, and his peace he leaves with them, not as the world gives, but this be that comforter, and we are never alone through our trials, for he reminds us daily what is that promise, and he teaches us the words of life, even unto our death, and he carries us as a hen her chicks, answering us in our time of need, for not one hair on our head is not accounted for.